20 years ago, when I first joined the Edna McConnell Clark Foundation, a community leader came to me and presented a plan for helping kids and addressing poverty in his neighborhood. I was incredibly impressed with this plan, but it did not fit our foundation's strategy. So I wrote him a detailed letter offering suggestions for how he could narrow his focus in order to meet the foundation's criteria for funding smaller projects. Well, the letter did not go over well. The community leader approached me a few days later at a meeting and went off. "You have no clue. Why do you think you know better than me what our community needs?" Trust me, this is a heavily sanitized version of what was said. This was a low, really low moment for me. That leader was Geoff Canada. Yes, I was the naive young person, the Roob, if you will, who tried to talk Geoff Canada out of expanding what became the Harlem Children's Zone. Geoff was not yet famous, but he was by far the most inspirational leader I had ever met. He reduced me to tears, and as my husband Lucas, who is here today, can attest, the faucet did not stop for days. Yet that was truly a life-changing experience for me. I realized then that our narrow funding approach was never going to solve problems for Harlem's kids. Worse, it was just undermining Geoff's ability to lead and grow. And it's really that epiphany that has led to everything that I have worked on since, and to the idea that I am really excited to share with you today. So my dream is to see a massive, radical change in the way we funders invest. Within 10 years, I envision a new normal where dozens, if not hundreds of funders join together so that funding flows more rationally and robustly to leaders with proven strategies for solving big social problems. There are, as many of you here know, many obstacles to expanding programs that work. But if you're a social sector leader, you know that your number one challenge is the time that you have to spend chasing dollars. You also know that the better you are and the bigger you are, the less capital is available to you and the harder it is to raise. Last year in the US, individuals and foundations contributed $400 billion to charity. But most of it went in small bites to startups and individual programs. The average foundation grant size was $35,000. If we're to be brutally honest with ourselves, we have to ask, is this piecemeal approach our best bet for solving social problems? I believe that the solutions are out there, even in this room. But today, money trickles to what works. If we're serious about solving social problems, we have to make it flow. Successful business investors already work this way. So when a Kleiner Perkins or another VC meets a visionary like a Larry Page or a Sergey Brin, they invest holistically, not piecemeal, to help that innovator bring his or her vision and company to life. And I've also seen how this can work in the social sector. So while we were making small project-based grants, Stan Druckenmiller, a leading investor and philanthropist, started making big, long-term investments in the Harlem Children's Zone. He said, and I love this quote, "I like to put all my eggs in one basket and watch that basket carefully." It's that kind of investing that has helped the Harlem Children's Zone become what it is today. 15 years ago, our foundation made a big shift, and we started making large, long-term, unrestricted investments tied to performance. But soon we saw that even this was not enough. Our resources alone were not big enough to affect the change that we sought. So we became fundraisers ourselves, hand in hand with our grantees. Most recently, we launched a new venture called Blue Meridian Partners. And Blue Meridian is pooling $1 billion from a diverse group of philanthropists. Together, we are making investments of up to $200 million each in high-performing nonprofits that are helping the most disadvantaged children in the United States. Our upfront capital is helping these leaders think big, go big, and achieve more than ever before. Take, for instance, Mark Edwards and Peter Belden, the founders of Upstream. They're tackling a root cause of intergenerational poverty, the 1 million babies that are born every year to mothers who did not plan to get pregnant. Let me just for a minute illustrate the relationship between poverty and unplanned pregnancy. So Mark tells the story of a woman, a married mother of 2, who today is a successful practicing attorney. When she was a teenager, she was poor and had to go through incredible hoops to get an IUD. She was lucky, she got one, but she grew up with 11 female cousins who were not as lucky. 10 had unplanned pregnancies, and today all 10 are on public assistance. This lawyer will tell you that getting an IUD was her ticket out of poverty. Today, when a low-income woman goes into a community health clinic, it's not a standard practice to talk about contraception. Upstream is changing this by training healthcare providers to ask a woman whether she plans to get pregnant in the next year. If she says no, she's offered many choices, including long-acting reversible contraception, and she can get this on the same day that she comes in. This is already the experience for women that go to private doctors, but not for low-income women going to community health clinics. Think about this. If you can help 10 million women avoid unplanned pregnancies, you have saved the country billions of dollars in health and other safety net costs. Best of all, you've printed millions of tickets out of intergenerational poverty. Isn't this the kind of impact that we want? The payback dwarfs the size of the investment, no matter how big that investment is. Now, how do Mark and Peter go about raising the hundreds of millions of dollars that they will need for Upstream to fulfill its potential? How do they even think about this when the average grant size is $35,000? Well, they don't. Like many other social sector leaders, they will ultimately have to lowball their expectations in relationship to a piecemeal and constrained funding environment. We need a new normal where leaders do not have to twist themselves into pretzels to chase small amounts of money. We need a new normal where leaders like Mark and Peter can get access to large infusions of capital more efficiently so that they can focus on execution and performance. This is the new normal that Blue Meridian is trying to achieve. Another example is the nurse-family partnership created by David Olds. Specially trained nurses work with low-income first-time mothers during pregnancy and until their child is age 2. They help moms develop parenting skills and get access to education and job training. 3 decades of research shows that this program works. Children are significantly less likely to experience abuse and neglect. Mothers are more likely to be employed. One study estimates that every dollar invested returns $5 in future savings. This year, there are 380,000 moms that could be eligible for Nurse Family. Despite the public and private funding that Nurse Family receives, it will only serve 35,000 of those moms, essentially less than 1/10 of its future potential. Can we even calculate the benefits for that child, that family, that community? Yes, our current solutions may not be absolutely perfect. We may want them to cost less, and we may want the evidence to be even better. But why don't we take the best that we have, like the Nurse Family Partnership, and more massively invest in those organizations so that they can continue to improve and build their evidence base and get more cost effective as they are growing. Now imagine a portfolio of these great strategies, like Nurse Family, Upstream, Harlem Children's Zone. And imagine a marketplace of these portfolios. And imagine that there's not just one Blue Meridian, but 20 Blue Meridians, each bundling millions, if not billions of dollars, each focusing on a pressing social issue like the environment, health, or education. Take Warren Buffett, for example. Instead of forming his own foundation, he decided to pool his resources with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. What if more of us in philanthropy worked this way? What if we pooled our resources and then together fully invested in our best strategies? Imagine if this was the new normal. Of course, this funding approach is not a substitute for also investing in startups, grassroots, and community organizations. And we will need to continue to advocate for public funding and systems change. But there's one thing that we have not really done. We have not fully invested in taking what's working on a smaller scale and bringing it to a large national scale. I believe that by collaborating and investing in this way, we can make huge leaps towards solving our most intractable problems. People ask me why we came up with the name Blue Meridian. For me, this meridian is a new pathway to the future. And the reason why it's blue, like the clearest, most vibrant blue sky, is because we have faith and optimism that we can and we must do this together. Thank you.